The boiling hot soup splashed through the air, moving in slow motion before crashing onto the kitchen floor. A few burning drops hit Rita's cheek. The busy kitchen went dead silent. The only sound was the bubbling of pots on the stove. Standing in front of Rita was the restaurant manager, a tall woman with a cruel smile and cold eyes. She had just thrown a customer's hot lunch directly at Rita's face, laughing out loud as Rita dodged the worst of it. "Pick it up, you clumsy cook," the manager sneered, crossing her arms over her chest. "And after you clean up your mess, maybe we should check your pockets. Things always seem to go missing when you are around." The manager thought Rita was just a poor, helpless girl she could bully without any consequences. She thought Rita was a nobody who desperately needed this low-paying job. She was wrong. Dead wrong. What the cruel manager did not know was that the very ground she stood on belonged to Rita. She had no idea that the quiet black cook wiping soup off her cheek was the legal owner of the entire five-star restaurant. And she certainly had no clue that Rita's secret husband was Han Seo-jin, the most powerful and dangerous Korean Mafia boss in the city. The manager was busy thinking about how to impress the handsome, rich-looking Asian man sitting in the VIP section, hoping to seduce him later that night. She did not realize that the man was Han Seo-jin himself, watching his beloved wife wipe burning soup from her skin. The manager had just signed her own firing papers, and she was about to lose everything she cared about. This terrible nightmare started months ago on a sunny Tuesday afternoon. Rita had just graduated at the very top of her class from the best catering school in the state. Coming from a poor family, she had always worked incredibly hard to support her parents and her younger brothers. She gave them every extra penny she made working long night shifts at a dirty local grocery store. When she received a mysterious, full-ride scholarship to culinary school, she cried tears of absolute joy. She had no idea back then that her secret guardian angel was Han Seo-jin, a powerful underworld boss who had fallen deeply in love with her kind heart. Soon after, they were secretly married, hiding their relationship from his dangerous world to keep her safe. On that bright day months ago, Rita had dressed up in a beautiful white dress and her only pair of nice high heels. She walked into this exact restaurant to apply for a head chef position, feeling excited and ready for a new chapter. But she never even made it to the human resources office. The cruel manager had stopped her right in the lobby. Taking one look at Rita, the manager turned up her nose in pure disgust. She loudly insulted Rita's outfit, mocked her background, and told the other customers to check their bags because Rita looked like a common street thief. Humiliated and chased out of the building by security, Rita had gone home in tears. When Han Seo-jin found out why his beautiful wife was crying, his anger was terrifying to see. Instead of just sending his men to scare the manager, he did something much better. He bought the entire multi-million-dollar restaurant in cash and gave the ownership papers to Rita as a special birthday gift. He gave her complete power. But Rita did not just want to fire the woman from a distance. She wanted to see how the place really ran from the inside. She applied as a normal kitchen employee through the HR department. Since the HR staff had no idea she was the new boss, they hired her instantly because her cooking was simply amazing. Working undercover in her own kitchen, Rita uncovered a giant mountain of dirty secrets. She watched closely as the manager stole expensive wine, premium meats, and heavy bags of cash from the safe. The manager was using the restaurant's hard-earned money to spoil her useless, bodybuilder boyfriend who refused to get a job. Rita gathered solid proof of every single stolen penny, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Now, wiping the hot soup from her face, Rita looked up. The manager was still laughing, completely unaware that she had just ruined her own life. The manager even fixed her hair and batted her eyelashes at the rich, handsome Korean man sitting in the VIP booth, hoping to win him over. She had no clue that the stranger was Han Seo-jin, and he looked ready to burn the building down to protect his wife. Rita gave her husband a calm, secret nod. She reached deep into her apron and pulled out a thick folder filled with proof of the manager's serious crimes. The time for hiding was finally over. The manager's smirk vanished as Rita slammed the folder on the metal counter, ready to expose the thief and take her rightful place as the true boss. If you're new here, welcome to Afro-Korean Cartel Stories. Hit that subscribe button before you keep watching. Now, let's continue. The morning Rita walked into that restaurant for the first time felt like the beginning of something wonderful. She had pressed her white dress 3 times to make sure every wrinkle was gone. Her heels were old but polished to a shine. She carried her portfolio close to her chest like it was made of gold, because to her, it was. Every certificate, every award, every late night studying instead of sleeping was inside that folder. The lobby was cool and smelled like expensive flowers. Rita smiled at the receptionist and asked politely for the HR department. She never got there. The manager appeared like a storm cloud blocking out the sun. She looked Rita up and down slowly, the way someone looks at something they stepped in by accident. Her lip curled. She let out a short, sharp laugh that made a few nearby customers turn their heads. "Can I help you?" she said, but her voice made it clear she had no interest in helping anyone who looked like Rita. "I am here to apply for the head chef position," Rita said, keeping her chin up. "I just graduated top of my class from." "Top of what class?" The manager cut her off, speaking loudly enough for the whole lobby to hear. "Sweetheart, look around. This is a 5-star restaurant. We have standards here." She gestured at Rita's outfit with one painted fingernail. "That dress looks like something from a charity bin. And those shoes." She laughed again, shaking her head. A woman near the entrance pulled her handbag tighter against her side. The manager noticed and smiled wider, feeding off the reaction like it was food. "Ladies, I would watch your belongings," she announced loudly to the room. "You can never be too careful." Rita's face burned hot. Her throat tightened. She wanted to say something strong and sharp, but the security guard was already moving toward her, his big hand pointing at the door. She walked out into the afternoon sun with her head down, clutching her beautiful, useless portfolio. She did not cry until she reached the bus stop. Then she cried so hard her whole body shook. She had no idea that someone had been watching her the entire time, and that his love for her would change everything. Han Seo-jin was not a man who showed his feelings easily. He had grown up in a world where feelings were weaknesses, and weaknesses got people killed. He ran his empire with cold, quiet power. Men twice his size lowered their eyes when he walked into a room. Rival bosses sent gifts and apologies without being asked. He had earned every drop of fear and respect through years of dangerous, careful work. But Rita made him feel things he had no words for. He had watched her from a careful distance for a long time before he ever introduced himself. He saw how she shared her lunch with a homeless man outside the grocery store. He saw how she tutored her little brothers at the kitchen table until midnight. He saw how she smiled even when she was tired and hurting. He paid for her scholarship quietly, through 3 different companies, so she could never trace it back to him. He told himself it was simply the right thing to do. He knew he was lying to himself. When their paths finally crossed and they fell in love, he made her one promise above all others. He would keep her safe from his world, no matter what it cost him. Their marriage was real and deep and completely secret. Only his most trusted men knew she existed. So when she came home on her birthday with red eyes and soup-stained pride, he sat very still and listened to every word. He did not raise his voice. He did not slam his fist on the table. He simply looked at her with those dark, steady eyes and asked her one question. "What is the name of the restaurant?" 3 days later, he placed a thick legal envelope in her hands at the breakfast table. Inside were the full ownership papers for the restaurant, signed over entirely to her. He had paid cash. The previous owner had not argued. "Happy birthday," he said simply, pouring her tea like he had not just bought a multi-million-dollar building overnight. Rita stared at the papers for a long time. Then she looked up at her husband and made a decision. She did not want someone else to fire the manager. She wanted to do it herself, face to face, when the time was exactly right. Rita applied through the restaurant's regular HR email, like any other job seeker. She used her real name because she knew the manager handled the front of the restaurant and never touched the hiring paperwork. The HR team called her back within 2 hours after tasting the small food samples she had included with her application, which was a trick her culinary school professor had taught her. She started the following Monday as a line cook. Walking back through those same lobby doors felt strange. The expensive flowers still smelled the same. The marble floors still shone under the lights. But this time, nobody stopped her. She wore simple black kitchen clothes and kept her head down like every other worker rushing toward the back. The kitchen was loud and fast and hot. Rita loved it immediately. She fell into the rhythm of the work like she had been born for it, because in many ways she had. The other cooks were friendly once they saw how skilled she was. She never complained, never cut corners, and always cleaned her station perfectly. Within 2 weeks, the head cook was quietly giving her the harder, more important tasks without even realizing why. The manager visited the kitchen 3 or 4 times each day. But she walked through like the workers were furniture. She never learned their names. She tasted the food with a bored expression and disappeared again without a word of thanks. Rita watched her carefully every single time. She noticed which mornings the manager arrived carrying an empty designer bag that left the building looking heavier. She noticed which supplier deliveries never made it to the storage shelves. She noticed how the cash register totals at closing never quite matched the amounts written in the daily report. Small things. Quiet things. The kind of things a bully never worries about hiding because she does not believe anyone is paying close enough attention. Rita was paying very close attention. She kept a small notebook in her apron pocket. Every stolen bottle of wine. Every missing cut of beef. Every number that did not add up. She wrote it all down in her neat, careful handwriting, building a picture one quiet detail at a time, waiting patiently for the moment she had been planning since the day she walked out of that lobby in tears. The restaurant's cold storage room sat at the far end of the kitchen hallway, behind a heavy silver door that fogged up when you opened it. Only senior kitchen staff and management had the code. Rita had memorized it during her first week by watching the head cook punch it in twice from across the room. She had always been good at noticing small things. She started arriving 30 minutes before her shift began each morning. The loading dock at the back of the building received deliveries starting at 6, and the manager was always there to sign off on them personally. At first, Rita thought the manager simply liked being in control of the ordering. Then she started counting boxes. The delivery records listed 12 premium ribeye steaks on a Tuesday. Rita counted 10 going into the cold storage. The manager had already placed 2 inside a personal cooler bag before the delivery man finished unloading his truck. On Friday, 4 bottles of the restaurant's most expensive imported wine vanished the same way. On the following Wednesday, it was a whole tray of fresh lobster tails. Rita photographed everything quietly with her phone, her back to the security camera, using a careful angle she had planned out the week before. The cash was harder to prove but not impossible. Rita had made a friend in the restaurant's accounting office, a quiet young woman named Bomi who was clearly uncomfortable with the numbers she was asked to process each week. Over shared lunches in the break room, Bomi slowly opened up. The manager had been skimming cash from the daily register closes for at least 8 months. She always waited until the junior staff finished the count, then corrected the total herself before it was submitted. Bomi had flagged it once. The manager told her she had made a math error and never spoke to her kindly again. Rita asked Bomi to print copies of every suspicious report from the past 8 months. Bomi printed them without a single question, looking lighter the moment the pages came off the printer, like she had been carrying the weight of them all along. Rita added them to her folder and pressed it flat in her locker beneath her spare apron. The picture was almost complete. All she needed now was one perfect moment. His name was Darius, and he came to the restaurant every Friday without fail. He always arrived at noon sharp, sat at the same corner table in the dining room, and ordered the most expensive things on the menu without looking at the prices. He was enormous, with arms that stretched the sleeves of his shirts and a jaw that seemed carved from concrete. He was also, as far as Rita could tell, completely unemployed and perfectly happy about it. The waitstaff hated his Fridays. He sent food back for no real reason, clicked his fingers to call servers over, and never once said thank you. His meals were always marked as manager's complimentary, meaning the restaurant absorbed the full cost every single week. Nobody questioned it openly. Everyone understood who paid for his life. Rita watched him from the kitchen window one Friday while she prepped vegetables. The manager had come out of the back in a fresh coat of lipstick to greet him, laughing at something he said before he even finished saying it. She straightened his collar like he was a prize she was showing off. He leaned back in his chair with the relaxed, comfortable look of a man who had never once worried about money because someone else always handled that for him. Later that afternoon, Rita saw the manager slip Darius a white envelope at the table. It was thick. He tucked it into his jacket without looking inside, which meant he already knew how much was in it, and he was completely satisfied with the amount. Rita captured the moment on her phone from between the kitchen door and its frame, a narrow gap that gave her a clean, clear shot. She added the photo to her growing folder and thought about Bomi, who had been working double shifts to cover small budget gaps the manager created every month. She thought about the junior kitchen staff who had been told there was no money for raises this year. She thought about her own white dress and the sound of that cruel laugh bouncing off the lobby walls. She closed her folder calmly, tied her apron strings tighter, and went back to work. Han Seo-jin arrived at the restaurant on a quiet Thursday evening wearing a dark suit that cost more than most people's monthly rent. He sat alone in the VIP section, which he had specifically reserved under a false name. Rita knew he was coming. She had texted him that morning with 3 simple words. "Tonight is fine." He understood immediately. From the kitchen, Rita watched through the service window as the manager spotted him from across the dining room. She saw the exact moment it happened. The manager's whole body changed. Her shoulders went back. Her chin lifted. She smoothed her jacket with both hands and told the nearest server that she would personally handle the VIP table. She walked over with a smile Rita had never once seen her use on anyone in the building. It was warm and soft and completely fake. She introduced herself, laughed at something Seo-jin said with a little too much enthusiasm, and touched the edge of his table as she spoke, leaning in just slightly closer than professional manners required. Seo-jin was perfectly polite. He always was. He had spent his entire adult life sitting across from dangerous, dishonest people and giving nothing away through his expression. A restaurant manager trying to flirt with him was not even a small challenge. He smiled just enough to keep her comfortable, ordered sparingly, and watched his wife move efficiently through the kitchen behind the service window with quiet, steady pride. The manager came back to the VIP table 3 times more than necessary. She recommended desserts he had not asked for. She told him about herself in ways that had nothing to do with his dining experience. At one point she laughed and touched her own hair, which was the kind of gesture that told Rita everything about what the woman was hoping the evening might become. Rita felt nothing close to jealousy. She felt something closer to patience, the deep, settled kind that comes from knowing exactly how a story ends while another person is still happily reading the first page. She dried her hands on a clean towel, checked that her folder was exactly where she had left it, and waited for the soup. The soup was a classic mistake that had nothing to do with Rita. A new server, barely 3 weeks into the job, had placed a large bowl of the day's boiling broth too close to the edge of the pass-through counter. It was an easy error, the kind every new person makes once. Rita saw it happening before it happened, the slow, inevitable lean of the bowl toward the edge, and she reached out quickly. But the manager appeared from nowhere and moved first, not to steady the bowl, but to shift it sharply with the back of her hand in Rita's direction. It was not fully an accident. Rita saw the flicker of decision in the manager's eyes in the half-second before it happened. Not a full plan, just a mean, thoughtless impulse dressed up as a clumsy moment. The soup went airborne. The kitchen froze. Hot drops found Rita's left cheek before she turned her face away from the worst of it. The heavy bowl hit the floor with a crash that echoed off every metal surface in the room. The boiling broth spread wide and fast across the tile. The manager stood back and smiled. "Pick it up, you clumsy cook," she said clearly, loud enough for the whole kitchen to hear. "And maybe we should check your pockets after. Things always go missing when you are around." Not a single person in that kitchen made a sound. The junior cooks stared at their stations. The new server looked at the floor. Bomi, who had come to the kitchen doorway with a stack of papers, pressed her back against the wall. Rita straightened up slowly. She pressed her clean towel against her cheek for a moment, then lowered it and looked at the manager without any expression at all. Then she looked through the service window at the VIP section. Seo-jin's jaw was tight. His hands were flat on the table. He was doing the thing he always did when he was furious and choosing not to show it, which was to go very, very still. Rita gave him a small, calm nod. Not yet. I have it. She reached into her apron. The folder landed on the steel counter with a sound that cut through the silence like a blade. Rita opened it without hurry. She laid the first set of papers flat and smoothed them with her palm the way someone might arrange flowers. Delivery receipts printed on official company letterhead. Photographs taken in the gray early morning light of the loading dock. Inventory logs with numbers circled in red pen. 8 months of accounting reports with the inconsistencies highlighted in yellow, each one initialed by Bomi in small, careful letters at the bottom corner. The manager stared at the papers. The smile was completely gone. What is that? She said. It came out flat, not quite a question. That, Rita said pleasantly, is 12 premium ribeye steaks. 4 bottles of 2019 Chateau Margaux. 1 full tray of Maine lobster tails. And approximately $43,000 in cash taken from the register closes between last September and this April. She turned to the next page. This one is a photograph of you handing a thick white envelope to a man named Darius at table 7. That was 3 Fridays ago. I have 6 more like it. The manager's face had gone the color of old milk. She looked around the kitchen at the staff who had never once spoken back to her, never complained, never pushed. Every single one of them was looking directly at her now. You cannot just come in here and... I own this restaurant, Rita said. The words landed quietly. Quietly enough that the manager leaned forward slightly, as if she had misheard. I have owned it for 4 months, Rita continued. The ownership transferred to me as a birthday gift. Every HR file, every supplier contract, every lease agreement has my name on it. You have been stealing from me since the day I started working in my own kitchen. The manager turned toward the dining room, some automatic instinct pulling her toward the handsome, wealthy man in the VIP section, as if he might somehow be useful to her now. Seo-jin had stood up from his booth. He crossed the dining room slowly and stopped beside Rita, not touching her, just standing close in the quiet, certain way that made his presence feel like a wall. The manager looked between them and understood. Rita pulled one final page from the folder. A termination letter. Already signed. Security arrived within 4 minutes, which was how long it took Rita to make one phone call to the building's head of operations, a man named Mr. Park who had been hired by Seo-jin and answered only to Rita. He came with 2 others. They were polite and completely immovable. The manager did not go quietly. She grabbed the edge of the counter and said several loud, ugly things that Rita chose not to respond to. She threatened lawyers and newspapers and people she clearly believed she knew. She looked once more at Seo-jin with desperate, calculating eyes, still trying to find a way he might be useful to her, still not fully understanding what she was seeing when she looked at him standing next to Rita. Mr. Park placed a cardboard box on the counter for her personal items. He told her she had 10 minutes. She took 8, and then she was gone. The kitchen was absolutely silent for a moment. Then Bomi let out a long, shaking breath from the doorway. One of the junior cooks started laughing, a shocked, relieved sound that bounced off the metal walls. Someone began quietly clapping, then stopped, not sure if it was appropriate. Rita looked around at all of them, these people who had shown up every day and done their work well in a place that had not treated them the way they deserved. From now on, she said, things are going to be different here. She did not make a speech. She did not explain herself or her plan or her marriage. She simply took off her line cook's apron, folded it neatly, and placed it on the counter. Beneath it she was still wearing her kitchen blacks, nothing fancy, nothing dramatic. She asked Mr. Park to schedule a full staff meeting for the following morning and told him to order lunch for everyone from the best bakery 2 blocks over, the one the staff always talked about but never bought from because it was a little too expensive. Seo-jin walked back to his table to collect his jacket. On his way out through the kitchen, he paused beside her and said nothing. He simply looked at her with those dark, steady eyes the way he always did when he was proud of her and had no words that felt big enough. She smiled at him. He left. Rita tied on a fresh apron, picked up her knife, and got back to work. This was her kitchen now. It had always been hers. She was simply finally home. And that's a wrap on today's story. If this one pulled at something in your chest, then let us know in the comments. Tell us your favorite moment and where you're watching from. And if you're new here, welcome. Subscribe so you never miss a story. Like this video so more people find it. We'll see you in the next one. Please support by subscribing and commenting what you enjoyed about the story and where you're watching from.